There are three different types of muscle tissue: cardiac, smooth, and skeletal, and although they have some similarities, they all have different functions in the body. Firstly, we can look at the cardiac muscle, which can be found in the heart, therefore making it an involuntary muscle, as the heart consistently pumps blood around the body as long as there is a consistent flow of oxygen, which is similar to smooth muscle, as it is also involuntary. However, can instead be found in the tubes of the body and blood vessels. This differs from skeletal, as this muscle is voluntary, as the brain has to send signals through the nervous system in order for a movement to occur. However, it is similar to the cardiac muscle, as both are striated, whereas the smooth is not. Furthermore, skeletal muscle is a long cylindrical cell made up of hundreds of muscle fibers. One of the biggest differences related to these types of muscle tissue is linked with sport and aerobic/anaerobic endurance, as two of these muscles have a slow twitch, cardiac and smooth, meaning they do not fatigue, as they are more controlled, which is useful to have in sports where high level of aerobic endurance is needed, i.e. a marathon. On the other hand, the skeletal muscle is better adapted for fast bursts of movement, as the muscle will fatigue after a while, i.e. 100 meters. This is due to the muscle's speed of contraction, as cardiac and smooth muscles have a very slow, rhythmic contraction, whereas skeletal varies. As well as the tissue having different functions, all three also differ in size and structure, as the cardiac muscle tissue is striated, with just one nuclei and a branch which assists in holding the fibers together when the heart contracts. On the other hand, smooth tissue has a fusiform structure and is made up of sheets of muscle cell which have actin and myosin inside. The smooth muscle also gains its energy by the hydrolysis of ATP, which is similar to skeletal and cardiac. However, cardiac also contains a high density of mitochondria, which also supplies its energy. Skeletal muscle gross anatomy. Skeletal muscle is structured in a long cylindrical single shape made up of hundreds of muscle fibers together. Every skeletal muscle is covered by a layer of epithelium, a connective tissue sheath. Outside this is the fascia, which ventures into the muscle and separates it into compartments of muscle fibers, a fasciculus, which is surrounded by an epithelium. These connective layers are very important for protecting and supporting the muscle, as it can be very fragile. Furthermore, these layers also provide an entry for blood vessels. This is a huge factor, as the main function of skeletal muscle is contraction, as it can only contract with a nerve which is always accompanied by an artery and vein. They also extend further out to form a tendon, which connects to the periosteum of the bone. The origin of this is the fixed attachment, and the insertion moves with the movement. In addition, the skeletal muscle needs a high supply of blood vessels and nerves as its primary function in movement, and therefore nerves are needed to send multiple impulses throughout the body. As seen in the previous slide, we know that skeletal muscle has a varied twitch, meaning it can fatigue easily. As it is a skeletal muscle, which is adapted for movement, nerves and neurons also need to be controlled in order to stimulate the movement. To achieve this, the neuron is sent along the motor neuron until it reaches the vesicle, and the transmitter acetylcholine is released. Muscle roles. The agonist is the prime mover in any movement such as flexion or extension. This is because it is tasked with the largest workloads out of the muscles and is responsible for the movement. There can be more than one agonist in a movement. The antagonist is the opposite of this, as it opposes the movement of the agonist in order to stop it overshooting. It achieves this through creating resistance when an agonist performs a movement. A key example of this could be the triceps brachii, preventing the biceps brachii overshooting in a bicep curl. This is because as the bicep is the agonist, it contracts to produce the motion, whereas the triceps relax to resist the bicep from overshooting. As you lower the weight in this curl, the antagonist triceps contract and the bicep relaxes. Furthermore, in this movement you also have the role of the synergist, which assists the prime mover and therefore lowers the force load, which helps prevent injury. In this case, the brachioli radialis. The fixator then prevents the agonist from any unwanted movement and acts as a stabilizer, which is very important because the majority of muscles are attached to more than one bone. Without the fixator, they would multi-articulate, making movements very difficult. In this case, the trapezius works to stop the scapula moving, as it is attached to the bicep. The origin is where the muscle originates from. This does not move during contraction, whereas the insertion does move during a contraction, and is where the muscle enters and ends.